Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to another History of Mortal Kombat episode. Now, in today's episode, since we're still coming off the release of the Mortal Kombat 2021 movie, we will be talking about the survivor of Vaeternus, the huntress vampire Nitara. Now, to really talk about Nitara properly, we must first travel all the way back to the original continuity and learn more about the home realm of the vampires, Vaeternus. Now, Vaeternus is one of many different unique realms in the Mortal Kombat universe, created upon the fall and subsequent destruction of the One Being, when the Grand Deity's physical being was split into the realms. Vaeternus was a realm that was born in the dark, and one that thrived on blood, so it's to no one's surprise that the native residents of the realm were the vampires, extremely powerful and ancient beings that lied within the darkness. Their age and existence within the series even rivals the likes of Edenians themselves, just to give you an idea of how old they are. And whilst they are human in appearance, they actually share no relation to their Earthrealm counterparts. And it's not quite like your typical vampire, where they are tainted by a curse or are turned by another vampire. They are simply their own individual race that just so happens to feed on individuals that do have blood. So it's not just Earthrealmers in that respect. Now, beyond this, not too much is actually known about Vaeternus, as the home is shrouded in mystery, but we do know it was a rich and thriving civilization, where life and opportunity presented itself to everyone. Now, that's not to say, however, it was flawless. At some point during the early years of the universe's creation, the realm would be tainted by the Datusha Blade, an ancient and dangerous weapon of destruction. You see, the Datusha was a blade that is solely driven by bloodlust, giving the wielder a full sense of achievement upon murdering someone. And this blade fell into the hands of one vampire by the name of Kahil Grigish. He was seduced by the blade's immense power and thus began to massacre his fellow brothers and sisters. It wasn't until centuries later where he regained his sanity and came to the realization of the horrific acts he did, not wanting anyone else to succumb to its influence. He would leave the realm, dragging the blade to Outworld in the hopes that by doing so, he would spare his home and the weapon would be lost to time. Now, the Datusha Blade went down in the realm's history as one of the most horrific massacres that they ever suffered, but it most certainly wouldn't be the last. Shortly following these events, the realm would erupt into utter chaos, having clashed with Outworld and been conquered by its emperor, Shao Kahn. He laid siege to their home, and their world was burnt to the ground. The vampires barely survived, with Nitara canonically being the only vampire we ever truly see in the series, implying just how low the numbers could possibly be. Upon Vaeternus' destruction, it would be merged with Outworld, so now Nitara was forced to live in this hostile territory. Understandably heartbroken about this situation, Nitara would search to the ends of every realm she could to possibly find a way to free her home. Now, of course, this was all done behind the back of the Emperor, who at this point anyway, had his eyes set on conquering other realms. It's also worth mentioning here that due to Nitara's late appearance and creation in the original continuity, it is unknown if whether or not she was forced to be a part of any of Shao Kahn's attack force, but it is at least worth possibly considering this idea, as Shao typically travels from realm to realm and enslaves the people he conquers into his army. Now, at some point before her debut, Nitara learned of a sacred orb that lied within Outworld, one that could in fact free her home from being merged. And while she was filled with happiness, it was unfortunately something that was out of her grasp. You see, for one, Shao still existed, and if the Emperor learned of her plan, she would most certainly perish. And two, it was submerged beneath lava. So Nitara was forced to bide her time and devise a plan that would allow her to free her home. So now, this actually brings us up to her official canonical debut, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Now, a lot goes on in this installment. The Mortal Kombat champion Liu Kang is killed, as well as Outworld's Emperor Shao Kahn by his advisors Shang Tsung and Quan Chi. With the seat of power now open in Outworld, many within the realm fight for their place at the top of the chain, with Nitara in fact being someone that turns a blind eye eye to it. With Shao now gone, she could finally start to see the fruits of her labor. Upon learning that the lava shrine housed the orb, Nitara would set her eyes on other fighters across the realms that she could influence under her will to basically do her bidding. And the first individual she came across was Reptile. The Saurian was grief-stricken upon the demise of the Emperor. As you see, Zarterans are subservient beings, and without an actual master to be given purpose, they would simply wander looking for meaning. Now, sensing his desperation, Nitara would introduce herself to him, lying to the Saurian that she was interested in reviving their race. She would present to him an ancient relic of their past, the Keihashi blade. Now, upon really believing that Nitara cared for him and his race, he would take the sword and swear an oath to her. Little did he know, he was nothing more than a mere little puppet. Now, while she had one chess piece on the board, she knew that she needed an individual that could stand the heat of the lava, and this is where she would come across a being of cold steel, Cyrax. Believing that his strong frame could withstand the heat, she would have Reptile attack him, wanting him in turn to damage his teleporter. By doing so, he would be stranded to the confines of Outworld, and this is where Nitara would propose her deal. Knowing of how dire his situation was, as Cyrax was on Outworld territory, she would offer him a deal, get her the orb from the lava shrine, and she would use her portal stone to teleport him back home. So, with no other choice, Cyrax abides by her instruction and finally retrieves her long desired orb. Upon claiming it, she would live up to her end of the deal, sending Cyrax home. Now free of a master with the key in her grasp, she would smash the orb, causing an eruption within Outworld that would finally peel Vaeternus from Outworld's clutches. The realm of the vampires had been restored. When this happened, she would abandon Reptile and finally, after millennia, return back home. It's here where she swore to become a force of good in her realm, wishing to protect it with her life. But she couldn't have predicted what came next. Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Whilst absent during the events of Deception, it does seem like Nitara was successful in restoring her home realm back to its former glory. That was until the Datusha blade returned once again, after being stranded in Outworld for thousands of years. The blade finally fell into the hands of someone, a demon by the name of Ashrah. Believing that it was now her life purpose to vanquish all that she perceived as monsters or evil, Ashrah went on a bloody and endless killing spree in Vaeternus. The massacres and lives taken rivaled the likes of Shao Kahn's own conquests. Many vampires fell at the hand of Ashrah and the Datusha. Now absolutely appalled by this horrific act, Nitara learned of a way to finally destroy the Datusha. Apparently, there was a weapon in Edenia that was said to be its counterpart, something that could shatter both the blade and its influence over the wielder. Understandably wanting vengeance, Nitara would set off as soon as possible to acquire this power. Call it chance or fate, but Nitara did come across Ashrah, and the two would clash, with Nitara gaining the upper hand. But it seems like she wasn't quite strong enough to finish the fight, so she would continue to travel to Edenia, luring Ashrah behind her in the hopes that by doing so, she could destroy both the blade and the blinded demon. But there was far more going on here than the two could have even realized. This installment was Armageddon, the end of days. You see, the sands of time had run out, the combatants of each realm had become too strong, and the Pyramid of Argus was designed to be the final battleground, the fight that would end all fights. And this just so happened to have been located in Edenia, so the two stumbled on a battlefield, and the battle would more or less commence the second they laid foot there. Originally, it was a battle between the forces of light and darkness, but eventually it erupted into a free-for-all. This clash was bloody and fierce, and sadly for Nitara, she would perish during this skirmish. Now, canonically, Armageddon is the official last time we do see Nitara, but it's not the last time we do hear of her, as after Shao Kahn's victory during Armageddon, and the continuities reset by the Thunder God, the vampire is name dropped a handful of times. The first was in the now non-canonical comic book series, the MKX comics. Now, during this comic book run, there was an extremely heavy emphasis on blood magic, with the now new Kamidogu daggers having ties to what would be known as the Blood Code, an ancient form of blood magic that was said to have derived from the One Being, as the blades had skewered his flesh and tasted his essence. Now, at the end of the comic book series, we do learn that it was in fact made possible due to Nitara's own affinity for blood magic, so it is believed and quite heavily implied that her own powers here may have in fact been the main culprit behind the whole Blood Code during the MKX comic book series. We get our next and final name drop of her in Mortal Kombat 11, where there is a verbal exchange between Scarlet and Erron Black, where it is revealed that apparently the cowboy had a romantic interest with the vampire, but sadly it did not last. Now, unfortunately, this is the only proper name drop of her in the rebooted canon, so this tragically is the full extent of Nitara's appearance within the rebooted canon. But with the timeline having been reset, and vampires being near immortal, at least in the aging sense, it is indeed very possible that she may return in the future, so we can't count her out just yet. But for now, this has been it for the history of Nitara. I do hope you have enjoyed this video and learnt more by doing so. This was a fun one to cook together, and it's been a while since I've done one of these. So now, before this video does wrap up guys, if possible, let's try getting it to about 500 likes, and please do not forget to tick that bell, as it will keep you up to date with all of my content. So now, as always guys, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you all next time.